everyone. Hope you're all doing great. Thank you so much for attending our live webinar on how to create a strategic website. My name is LeVar Henry, and I'm the creative director of Maystone. So we're just going to dive right into it now. I'm just going to not going to keep up your time too much. But before we do that, just want to give you a quick breakdown of who we are and what you do, just in case you haven't sort of heard from us before. And so, um, essentially, we simplify the way how design and marketing works within organizations. And what that looks like is us creating consistency across your brand. So whether it's to do with the look and feel, how you communicate, and who you communicate to, is to ensure that that is consistent right across your brand. And of course, if we're going to do that, we need to improve both your external and your internal and external means of communication. And so we look and find ways how we can easily streamline that process to make it as easy as possible. And once we've gone about doing all of that, it's how can we then strategically equip your sales and marketing team if you have one, or maybe you're just a entrepreneur, how we can equip you with the necessary assets that you need to market and sell the products and services within your business to your current and perhaps potential customers. And we sort of do this in three different ways. We by providing three different services. We call these our three pillars, and it sort of starts with our design subscription service, and it's really created to scale your business as quickly as possible in terms of how much content you can get out to your customers. And so if you imagine, if you will, perhaps you worked with agencies or maybe freelancers in the past, and sort of what tends to happen is that, say you have a project that you want them to work on, you would essentially say, here's a brief. They go away and they come back and they say, okay, then based on what you want, we can do it for X amount of money. We can give you X amount of revisions to adjust the design for your liking, or we can work on it for X amount of hours. And the thing is, when customers come to us, what we tend to find when they are caught in that sort of like predicament is either they have to not to go over their budget, to then settle for something that might not be right for them, even though because the number of revisions they have run up, or maybe um, the amount of hours that they've been provisioned for this project has gone off as well. And so they have to either go over their budget or settle for something that might not be exactly what they're looking for. But with our design subscription now, it provides that service for a single monthly fee. So you tell us what it is you want us to design for you. We get that to you over in 2 to 3 working days, depending on what it is the project is, and you can ask us to revise that as many times as you possibly can, or rework it as until you're happy, without any additional cost because of the number of hours or time we've worked and spent on it. So that's just one single monthly fee, no hidden cost anywhere whatsoever. And so our next pillar is our marketing and brand communication. And so the idea around that is to enable your business to grow strategically. And so, say for instance, you're looking to formulate your business, you're not really quite sure what you're going to offer, or what you're going to do, or maybe your business has grown and you want to look to new markets to expand your either product range or your target audience. Then we can create a plan and implement that plan, a strategic plan, to help you achieve those organizational goals. And we do that by integrating that specific brand message going across the entirety of your marketing channels, so that things are as consistent, as unified as they can be, but also conveyed in a way that was going to relate to your audience and for them to want to make that decision to buy. And the last of our pillars is our web design and development service. So whether it's to design your website on the front end, or whether it's to develop the website itself, we do both. And so the websites that we create is to deliver results. We create those websites to deliver results. So if you're looking to um, grow leads, to inform, or whatever it may be, we ensure that we work with you to create something that will give you those tangible, measurable results that you need in the way that you need them. And so those are our three pillars, sort of like a high level of what we do. And so without further ado, we're just going to dive right into how to create a strategic website and what that process looks like. So normally when someone comes to us, or perhaps you're working on your website, or maybe you've hired it out to a third party, but normally when someone comes to us, maybe they want to just make their first website, or as I mentioned before, they're looking to grow their business. And so they say, let's make a website. And when we have that conversation with them, that back and forth, they normally say, okay, then it needs to look like this, or whatever that needs to be, and it needs to have these features. And that's sort of the main focus of the around the conversation that they're having with us. So then when we say and ask them the question, okay, then what exactly do you need this website to do? What we tend to find is that they are not so great at articulating what they need the website to do, because it doesn't seem that it's been thought through as much as the other aspects of what they're looking for. And the aesthetics and the features, they're great things when it comes to developing your website. But you need to know why you need this website first and foremost, because if you don't know, then there's no clear objective or what it is we need to do and what needs to be achieved when it comes to the creation and design of this website. And so, in order to start the strategic process, you need to first answer that question. You need to outline what your objective is. And the purpose of your website could be to inform your customers about who you are and what you do. If it's an e-commerce website, it could be to sell your products and services, or perhaps it's to generate leads. There's form fills and other ways to capture information. And so you can then take that information at a later date to help with a campaign that you're planning to run in the midterm or in the long term down the. But at this point, once you've sort of like had a small sort of grasp of what it is you're trying to achieve, we'll assume as well that you know what your product is, what features it has, and what problem it's solving, and perhaps whose problem it's solving. So it's quite important to understand your target audience in this process. Understand what is it that they need, what is it that they prefer, and their behavior. So if you'd imagine what problems does your customer has, and how can you then sort of correlate the features and benefits of your product or service and marry that together with your customer? How do they prefer to consume content? Do they prefer to consume it in a way that's long form or short form, via text? Maybe it's video animation. And in terms of how they engage and interact on the web, on the internet, where do they go? When do they go there? How do they sort of like make that engagement? And of course, once you find all of that information about your customer, you need to do your market research, right? You need to look at your industry. You need to look at your competitors, see what trends are currently going on within your industry. What are your competitors doing? How are they engaging with your target audience? And doing all these three things together, it seems from the get-go very small things, and it doesn't really seem strategic. But once you do all of it, what you begin to realize is that you're able to then start formulating some important information, gather some really important information that you need. So the research that you do in your customer, you'll be able to sort of create yourself a customer persona or a customer profile. So imagine, if you will, your target audience as an individual. And that individual may be male or female, age 23 to 32. They have X amount of disposable income. They are this location. They have these hobbies and interests, and they have this sort of problem that you're looking to sort of solve, right? And then you marry that together, as I mentioned before, with your product and service. And so then what you'll be able to do once you look and see the similarities between those, you're able to then create a really consistent and clear message that will resonate with those particular customer, your target audience, by developing a really clear and concise content strategy. So doing that research on your customers, on the industry, looking at seeing how that marries up with your um, product and your service will enable you to create a real great content strategy that you'll be able to sort of like articulate what you're trying to sell or convey to your customer in a way that they'll understand, in terms of language used, whether it be formal or informal, how you lay your website out as well, and how you sort of like take them through that journey. Because once you have that information on your customer, who they are, what they do, you'd be able to sort of develop your brand itself at the same time. So maybe you sell skateboards, and we know people who are, they go and they do their skateboarding stuff. They're a bit anarchist when it comes to traditional things, and so they might, be vibrant wear vibrant colors. They might like fun language. That your website might need to look fun, and so then that also plays into how you design your website, plays into how you actually um write your content, what type of language you use, but also even how you lay things out with your sitemap to let them follow that specific um journey you want them to follow to make that decision to either buy your product or be informed on whatever it is you're trying to inform them. And so you'd realize that by performing this, you're able to do your content strategy, your design and branding, but also the user experience as well. And this one is really quite important that you get this right at the beginning, because it sort of dictates a lot of how successful your website can be from a strategic standpoint. So exactly what is UX or user experience, UX for sure, what is it and why it's important. So it's how your customer experiences or your customer's overall experience of your website. So is it that they go on your website to visit and it's pretty easy to understand, it's pretty straightforward, or maybe they go on there and it just takes long to load, everything's all over the place and they're not figuring out and they just think I'm just going to leave because it just doesn't make any sense. So your initial impression for your customer is going to be quite important when it comes to your user experience. So you want them to have a good first impression. And yes, even in web design and making sure that your website is done strategically, first impressions do matter. And you want to make sure that it's really easy to use and really easy to navigate through, as I mentioned before, and that information you provide needs to be crystal clear. So now, this is sort of an example of what I mean by all of that. And so this is a website, sort of like if I'll just walk you through what user experience or taking that into consideration and designing your website with that in mind, what it gets you, right? So if you imagine this company, here is the navigation, right? Here's the menu. Everything is pretty straightforward. It highlights here on the home page. It tells you to book a tent so you know what it is that they're trying to sell already from the go. You can check to see who they are, what they're about, and you can contact them if you need. But also, when you look at the content, it's straight to the point. Enjoy your holidays. So it's really engaging talking to people who are going on holidays and who are thinking they want to enjoy their holidays. Gives you some added extra information. Live that nomadic life wherever you go. Book a tent at your favorite location today. So it's told you it's for people that's going on holidays. It's told you that it's people who are very nomadic and they just want to get up and go. And it tells you as well that there's multiple locations that you can book these tents on, and it gives you the call to action as well to book now, right? And of course, maybe you have a specific place in mind, or maybe you don't if you're a user of this website. So you can then go on the locations here and then see what locations they have and choose from those. And clearly, I think, anyways, that this company has done their work on their customer persona and customer profile, because they are, as the images show, targeting couples. So young couples who want to sort of like go out and explore. You can see they're happy in the picture right there. And anyone who's a couple can just sort of like impose themselves in that picture, saying that could be us. We can be on that holiday and in that space, wherever it may be, and we can't like the outdoors. And then here, this part now, two, four legs laying down, just looking out. You can see this couple looking out, enjoying the view, the sereneness of it. And so they can see themselves in that situation. But this is just clear and concise and to the point. And you don't necessarily need to leave this page to find anything else out. You can make an informed decision as a user going on this website as to what it is that they do and whether you want to participate in it. And of course, some people would like that extra added layer of like, okay, then I want to see more about what's happening here with this company, people that go on use their tents and go on those particular holidays. Maybe I can check out their social media here to see any good stories, to see any videos and stuff like that. So it's an opportunity to get them further engaged with your brand. And so what you find is everything is needed here. Of course, definitely on the website, there is more information further down below, but if you provide them with what they need from the start, they're able to make that decision pretty clear and make a choice as to whether they want to purchase or not. And so after you've done that, so if we walk from what we've done or would have done if we were creating that strategic website, we would have highlighted our objective. We would have done our research on our customer and the industry, and would sort of like create a content strategy around that and lay things out effectively in a way that's easy to follow for our customer, in a way that they can follow it, and so that they can take the action that we want them to take. So if we make the assumption we've done all of that, our website is more or less designed already, and from a strategic standpoint, specifically for that target audience and that customer. So then now we need to optimize that. And essentially, what that means is that we need to make this website as efficient as possible to convey what we want in a timely manner, and how we want it to be conveyed. So optimizing our website, or optimizing your website, first thing you need to do is ensure that it's fast, right? You have a 3 second rule amongst experts who design websites, that it takes 3 seconds for a person to decide whether they want to be on your website or not, whether you have something of interest that they would want to explore or purchase. And so if your website takes 3 seconds to load, that's 3 seconds is gone for them to actually even engage with your content. So what you're going to find is that your bounce rate, which is the rate of when someone visits your website and just leaves without engaging at all with your content. That's it's the higher that number is, it's the we can often say it's the worse your content is on the front end right there. Something is just not working with your message, with the content that you have, with the website or something. Maybe it's the speed of it in that instance. So slow speed in website can lead to very high bounce rates, and we want to make sure that number is as low as possible. So we can increase the speed of our website, and stick to that 3 second rule by optimizing our images and doing that with the right file type. And that might not seem like a big idea, but it sort of adds up. Imagine, if you will, you've got a website, it's got X amount of pages on it, and then it has X amount of images. Your images are in the form of JPEG and PNG, and those are not big file types. But if you have a very large website, and if you have lots of images on there in general, that's going to eventually add up. So you're going to find, even though the sizes of those files aren't big, but they add up over time. And also, they are not the file types image-wise that Google and other browsers prefer. In actuality, Google prefers WBP image file formats or AVIF file formats. And so those are the browser preferences, but they're also smaller file types. And so the smaller file types means that your website has less element or less data to render and display to the user that's on your website. So ensuring that those images are as small as possible when it comes to the file size, not necessarily the size of it, but we can get to that at some point. Ensuring that that works will increase the speed of your website, certainly optimize it as much as you possibly can. And those increments, when you're dealing with 3 seconds, those small increments make a massive amount of difference between someone, being able to read your content and finding it interesting, or just deciding this is taking too long, I'm going to go. The next thing you can do to optimize those images is have lazy load on your website. And so what that means is that your website loads only the content that the user needs to see. So rather than loading everything on a web page at once, it just loads the images that the user is currently seeing at that point in time. And so it loads everything stack by stack, piece by piece. And so that's one thing you can also do to optimize your images. Also, you can enable browser caching. And so what that means is, if you go on a website, once you enable browser caching, you go on a website, someone goes from a browser, the browser itself saves those files, those images and stuff on the person's browser. So when they're visiting your website again, they don't have to be reloaded once more. And so the user experience gets that incrementally faster, or the website gets that is incrementally faster to them because the website doesn't have to perform the action anymore according when it comes to that particular user or those users. And obviously minimize HTTP requests. And this is, it might be a bit of a jargon for a lot of people, but essentially it just means reduce the number of elements that are on your website. More, it's not the more the better, it's the less the better. So every element you had on your website, it either has CSS code, HTML code, or JavaScript code. So you want less of that on your website because the more there is, it's the more your site has to render and has to show and work hard to deliver that content to the user. And if you imagine when, back in the days when there was dial-up and we had those computers when it was just very small amount of RAM and you put just one sort of like program on your computer and then it just starts moving slow. It's the same for your website. The less memory or the less capacity as is the slower it becomes. So you don't want to fill your website up with a bunch of elements that's not necessary. And that doesn't also tie into the core objective you're trying to achieve and align with the content strategy that you're trying to take your customer through in that strategic manner. Okay, so you need to make sure that your website is as fast as it possibly can. Also, you need to look at SEO optimization. And if you haven't designed your website yet, this is sort of like a really good place, a really good thing to do from the start because it really helps you in the mid-run, the midterm to long term, because SEO is a midterm to long-term game in order to sort of like do that and get results from it. But if you don't have any web hit history, so to speak, on your website because it's very brand new, or you're just thinking about creating it, then it's good to start off with a really nice optimized SEO website. And it simply just means that your website needs to be browser friendly. And so you can do that in the matter of like the better optimized it is that the more visibility we'll have on search engine when someone searches a particular product or service that you're selling. It's the more likely you're going to search high and rank high in the results when your website is SEO optimized. So you can have on-page SEO, and so that means the elements on your website itself. So if we, go back to your images, for example, if you give your images alt tags, and alt tags essentially is a description of your image, or could be a description of the text that's on the page where your image is. And so what you find is that when you add those alt tags, those descriptions of your images, you will more likely to appear in the image section of a Google search as well as the just typical search of Google, you're more likely to appear in the image search. And also having your alt tags set up will also improve the accessibility of your website, and Google loves that. And so what Google will say is that, okay, then I'm looking at your website, you have those alt tags in, and then that content is now accessible to someone who might be visually impaired or can't hear too well, or whatever sort of like impairment they might have, then they're able to have access to that content in how they sort of navigate the internet with how they specialize their equipment. And so what you find, you now open yourself up more to a larger audience and more of an organic reach at the same time as well. And Google likes that kind of stuff. So make sure your elements are on page SEO. And sort of like if we go back as well, that also means titling or laying out your website in the correct format. So if you imagine this text, the combination of this text is the layout of your website, you'd assume that this is the title, this is the subtitle, and this is sort of like your content and what everything is about on your page. So what Google does is just like how we read books, we don't read books from the bottom to the middle and then to the front. We read books from the beginning, the middle, and the end. And so Google reads your when it crawls or indexes your website, it reads your web pages just the same. So it then says, okay, then someone has made a search on SEO optimization. How many websites have something on that? Google pulls it all up, and it pulls it all up by looking at the name of the um, website page. But then it also says, okay, then this person's being specific in terms of what they want to know about SEO optimization. Let me now look at what the description of that page is. So then the description of your page needs to align with what's actually in the title of your web page itself. And then Google then says, okay, then the title's aligned, the description's aligned, the subject is aligned, and the content now is aligned. And how Google looks at that is that it will say that this is the H1 tag, H2 tag, and this is a P tag. That's how Google reads it in terms of the coding aspect of your website. So Google's like, okay, then it has all the information, it's reading well, it has all the information that the person's looking for. I can then recommend that further up in the results. And so it's really good to start with that. And if you haven't, really be strategic by getting your SEO optimization in, right? And doing that also helps you in a strategic manner that you're aligning or preparing your organic growth and your organic content that comes to your website. You're preparing for that to flow into your website by doing all of these things. And this is how you improve your organic reach. And that means you won't be spending as much on ads in the coming future because you have this organic growth going. And that's going to save you money down in the long run. So you also need to have off-page SEO. And so what that means is anything that you do online that links back to your website and improves your website's visibility. So say for instance, you have yourself some social media pages, you're doing stuff on social media, and then you link that back to your website. That person goes onto your website and then um, they start engaging and interacting. So the Google will then look and see, okay, then across the entirety of the internet, how many people or how many spaces is this brand showing up and turning up? So the more places your brand is visible, Google will say, okay, then this seems like a reputable company and they know what they're talking about regarding this subject because there are multiple places around the internet, whether it be on social media, whether it be on a guest blog or on podcast or whatever it may be. Just all these backlinks referring back to your organization and taking people back to your website. Basically, okay, then the reputation of this company is solid, so I can bring them up in the ranks to show them to users who are looking for a particular product or service. But you must be careful with this though, because some organizations and some companies don't have good reputations on Google. So you have to be careful of where you have your links displayed and who's displaying those links, because that can also affect um, your ranking in Google as well. But all of these are strategic. So if you know that your website is specifically geared around a particular product and service, and you have a campaign coming up around that, you can then add those backlinks and run those backlinks on different parts of the internet, and then that will then link back to your website. So you can see how all of these things start becoming really strategic and feeding into each other to give you the traffic and necessary sort of like outcome that you're thinking about. And also you have the technical SEO. So those are things that I just mentioned before. So reducing the number of elements on your website, that means you'll have less JavaScript, less CSS and HTML for your website to having to render. And so, that optimizes it in terms of speed also. So you have all of this kind of stuff that you need to have for your website in terms of optimization. But also, you need to take a mobile first approach. And what that means is that you need to design your website with mobile as a priority. And so, usually, when people make a website, they start making it on their desktop first or their laptops because it feels more comfortable to just design for the big screen. But what Google is saying is that no, you need to design for mobile first. So design a pretty straightforward website on your for a mobile device, and then you then look to change and adapt that to larger screens. Because when you design for mobile first, you realize that you don't add unnecessary things to that design, and it's more sleek and it's more to the point and straightforward and concise to take your customer through that process that you want them to go through. So it's always good to design from the mobile first approach, because when Google also looks at your website, they look at your mobile design first and then um, look to your desktop and laptop sort of like viewing of your website. So it's going to be sort of like a problem if Google looks and realize that, okay, then the what's on your mobile design is not matching up to what's on your desktop design. It doesn't really see that there's some consistency here, and there might be an issue with the content itself. I don't know if I can really show and display this to users that's being searching for particular things, yet alone put them high up in the rankings. And so it's really good to take this mobile first approach. And so if we now make, as we go through this process, we've done our research, written our objectives, laid out our content, laid out the design of our website. We've optimized that website. We're doing all of this in a very strategic fashion, and we've got traffic coming to that website now. Then the next thing is that, okay, then how do people communicate with you and say something to you, right? And from our perspective, we believe that that communication needs to be integrated. And so what that means is that someone needs to be able to um, use a number of tools or features on whatever platform you have your website to communicate to you. So they can do it through filling out a form. They can do it through a live chat that's on your website. They can do it through a chatbot that's on your website, or they can do it through social media that link backs to your website. Even it doesn't really, you can use one, two, three, all of these different things, but the idea is that you meet the user where they're at and give them the opportunity to communicate to you how they best feel comfortable. And once again, that links back to customer experience or user experience, because you want to make the process of them engaging with you as easy as possible, right? And that's how you're going to be able to collect information around, answering any inquiries, facilitate any customer feedback, and capture any lead information. And if you imagine you have a campaign you're running, it's a social media campaign, and then that leads back to your website, and then that web page has a lead form on there, and you capture that lead information. So having these incorporated together, what you're going to find is that you're now able to support your sales and marketing efforts, and you'll be able to sort of like keep abreast of where this information or where these opportunities are coming from, and that will in turn enhance the user experience, right? So integrate your communication, and then now that this traffic is coming through and people are, filling out forms and have engaging with chatbots or whatever it may be, that's a lot of data coming through. So how do you sort of like monitor and keep track of that? And this is sort of like a very important thing to do for not only being strategic now in the building of your website, but also in the long run and moving on forward after that, even way after your website has been designed. You need website data and analytics to sort of like ensure that you stick to your objective and you have a clear understanding of the data that's coming through on your website, and adjust your content and how things are laid out and your campaigns based on that. And one way you can do that is through Google Analytics. And so what Google Analytics does, if link it to your website, is that, for instance, say you have 10 users visit your site, and out of those 10 users, five of them came from um, Instagram. Three of them came from organic search, so they just Googled you and found you, and two of them came from referral links from backlinks you have on different places on the internet. So what that information, it will tell you where those individuals are coming from, but it'll also tell you what devices they've used. It would also tell you how long what page they went on, how long they went on those pages, and when did they come off of your website. It won't tell you who those people are, but it will give you a lot of information to act on. For instance, if you imagine, okay, then five of those individuals came from Instagram, but most of your marketing activity is on Facebook, right? So clearly there is a disconnect there. What you're doing on Facebook isn't working. So lower your effort on Facebook and start focusing your marketing effort on Instagram. And then have a look at that same point in time to try and identify what is it that people are engaging with on Instagram, what content they're engaging with that brings them to my website. And then from there, you can then go to your website now and say, then, okay, then I can then reformulate that content that I have. Maybe it's on a particular subject matter, maybe it's on a particular product. I can then reformulate that content to assimilate more with what I'm doing on Instagram to actually accommodate with that to actually attract that customer that's going on. Because what you might realize is that they're going on your website from Instagram, but when they go on your website they're falling off somewhere, and that might be because um the content that they consumed on Instagram isn't being reflected on your website. So it will enable you to have a look and make that adjustment to improve your conversion rate at that point. So these things are really important. And it will sort of like give you a clear indication of how you can adjust your messaging, how you can adjust the layout of your website, and what is it that you need to do in order to improve that experience and conversion rate for yourself and your website. And of course, there is other tools like Hotjar, and sort of what this is, it looks at your website or different web pages. It tells you an indication through heat mapping, hot and cold, where someone has the most engagement when they view a particular page, or where there's less engagement. So you can have a very clear visual representation of where people are falling off on your page. And it goes as far as recording those instances, so you can see what that person is doing when their mouse is moving. So for instance, like how the mouse is moving now on the screen, you'll be able to see that where they're falling off, what are they clicking on, what doesn't work, right? And perhaps they go down to half of the page and then they leave. And then clearly what you then and then you realize that your call to action is on the second half. So clearly what you need to do is that the content on the top is working because they're engaging. So I need to bring my call to action further up in the fold. And so that means that you'll probably increase the likelihood of your conversion, because you're now putting the necessary information for someone to act at the place that they are most likely to see it. And so these tools would be pretty good to have on your website and to help you to be very strategic going forward in every single thing that you do. And of course, try your best to have a CRM tool at your back end as well, to collect all of that data to be used for a marketing campaign in the long run also. And so doing all of this can help you to be quite strategic. But not only that, before we get to the questions and answers, it's quite important that after you've created your website, or in the process of doing so, that you come up with a marketing campaign for actually promoting your website, your brand new shiny website that has everything that it needs to have to be successful, in terms of the right content laid out in the right way, taking the customer through the right journey, to do the thing that you want them to do, right? You need to promote that website, because if you make something and just have it, no one will really know about it. So it's your opportunity to go to your users, if you have a social media presence already, and then say, tease the aspect that your website's coming up. Stay tuned, watch out. And then after your website is now launched, then provide information on that, link them back to the website to have a look. And then the extension of that can be a campaign then follows up from that, to draw more traffic to your website and keep that momentum going. So you have to do these things in order to be strategic about your website. You need a clear, concise strategy. You need to understand your customer. You need to understand your industry and what the competitors are doing. You need to create a strategy based on that understanding to lay things out as easily and efficiently as possible for them to understand and go through that journey, in order for them to either make an inquiry or make a sale, whatever it is you're trying to do. And of course, that website overall needs to be optimized, SEO optimized, to improve your organic growth going forward. and making sure that you're have the right sort of message being displayed or being sent out to the browsers so that you can have that organic traffic coming back. And so that's essentially it. I'm going to leave the floor sort of open to any questions that you have. I'm going to also, if anyone wants to have like a one-to-one session, I'm going to send you a link that you can sort of like book that in. Maybe you have a website that you want to see if it's the right time to make that, to sort of like adjust it or improve it. Um, we can provide you with a assessment of your website. Maybe you're thinking of building a website and you want to sort of have a conversation on that and what that could look like for you. And so we'll provide that information below after this. But for now, if you have any questions, please let me know.